Hi, everyone. Welcome to the August 11th, 2021 GitOps Working Group Principals Committee meeting. I am Scott Rigby. I'm your host with four other guests. Anyway, we're going to be covering a little bit about the last working group chairs meeting in this and pass a proposal your way. I know Leo planned to do this, but I'm guessing maybe, who knows, something may have happened. Power might have gotten cut. A lot has been going on today. Let me paste in the meeting agenda link here. One second. I'm going to paste it into the chat. For those listening later, if there is anyone listening later, you can find this linked from, there's a Google Meetings Google Doc linked from the GitOps Working Group's GitHub repos meetings document and from the README. You'll get there pretty quickly. Just skip to the Principals Committee section. So yeah. So I had on here that there was a topic to discuss Principle 4 and work toward the next milestone. I want to cross all of that out and say, oh yeah, can someone help with notes?
I will help with notes.
Okay.
Hey, Leo.
Hey, everybody. I thought we had canceled it. So I actually joined 15 minutes ago and it was just two of us and I dropped and I said, all right, we're canceling this. There's only two people.
That's awesome, Leo. So we're recording and do you want to go ahead and present what you were going to? And I'll put an agenda item on that. I was going to do it in your absence, but if you want to.
Well, actually, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to proceed now, because I saw the message that you had posted in the principals channel that we were to cancel this one.
Oh,
did you see that?
wait, really? Hang on. Oh my God.
Then that's what we should do.
Yeah,
I'm inclined to say I'm inclined to say we should just cancel this meeting, because I think that was like, if you look at the
oh wait, no, that was last week.
No, this is confusing. I thought this was because of the CFPs.
No, I think it was because we needed to prepare for the CFPs, which yeah. So
this is the day that keeps on giving.
This is it does. We can certainly stop this, but if you want, should we just give a high level overview, Leo, just real quick, and then cut this short and then do it next week? I can do that if you want.
If you feel like it, go for it. Yeah,
it just might be nice to give a little bit of a heads up. That's all. Like we've got some things to pass everyone's way, basically to all the maintainers, to this Principals Working Group, and to the maintainers. Essentially, I think we've all agreed, even though Nick, you're just joining this, but we've been meeting about the principles for months, and we're now in a state of diminishing returns for the value of each meeting. Not that we don't need to still resolve it, we do, but that this might not be the way to continue formatting it based on, just like, I think we've noted it before, and I think in past meetings, over half the group was saying, hey, could we just start doing this asynchronously? And I think I was the one saying, well, until it's resolved, I would rather keep meeting with anyone who's interested. And I think maybe that was just me not getting the hint. So there's that. And also we've received a lot of, we have all collectively gotten a lot of, given and received a lot of feedback on this so far. And all of our feedback hasn't even always made its way into each week's contribution to the principals draft to the PR, because we kind of keep getting sort of only partway through the agenda. We never really get to the meat of it, or we get to parts of the meat of it. We're not able to really make it through all of the feedback. So the idea was that we're going to now bump this next draft over to the chairs to put together a proposal that we think incorporates all the feedback, send it to the maintainers for make sure that sounds correct. And then was there anything missing then?
No, basically the idea, what we want to do is, like, we think at this point, what might be a good approach to move forward is basically put together a release candidate, given all the information
Yeah.
that we have received at this point. Because basically every principles meeting, we're kind of like almost recycling a lot of the same conversation that we've had over and over, right? So basically put together a release candidate, get it in front of the maintainers, and make sure that the maintainers can also, using all the recollected community feedback that we've received from community input, right? Using all that, evaluate the release candidates against that, have a release candidate reviewed by the Open GitOps maintainers, and then open that release candidate to basically a final round of open community. And actually, one thing that we've been discussing as chairs is there is a listing of interested parties that have not quite been directly involved in any of the principals calls, and their feedback should be considered as well. So actually reach out to those interested parties in the Open GitOps project and say, hey, you know what? This is a release candidate that looks to integrate all the feedback and all the knowledge that we've gathered over the past months from everybody that participated, and look to accelerate the kind of reaching this state of consensus on top of a release candidate that would actually be the foundation of a version 1.0 going forward. So it's kind of like the gist of what we've been talking about, looking to get out of this kind of like cycle of diminishing returns. So that's basically kind of elaborating on what Scott mentioned. So I'm going to yield, and Christian, your hand's up, so go ahead.
Yeah, so you actually answered my question while you were talking, but I'll still take the time. I was actually going to ask, is this a release candidate for V1 or V02? Because I know we were working on O2 for a while. Is the proposal to incorporate what we've been working on O2 into the release candidate?
Yeah, so here's the so this thank you, GitHub, remind me later. Okay. Yeah, so here's the link to the milestones that we have in that discussion item that we added as milestones. This this will essentially be to update these milestones to be RC1, RC2, like, so ultimately it would be if it's an RC toward the very first full release that we have. So it would be V1. So it'd be basically like, since we've decided to follow December, it'd be 1.0.0 RC.1 RC.2, RC.3, etc. You know what I mean? And then once we feel that we're, you know what I'm saying? Once we feel that we've like all the bases are covered, and we've covered everything that we have in our milestones, and we don't have any, extraordinarily major showstoppers as a committee, then we can go ahead and say, all right, let's do the V1. Because until then, everything so far is it's not even a full release. We have a lot of work that that still can't really be fully updated yet. We're still using the version that we had since last November, which is not bad. It's just we've identified that we want to update it somewhat. I think until we get to a V1, we're not going to be able to really do that.
And I think part of what kind of, at least personally, I've been very much looking to accomplish is I think the principles are just the beginning. I think once we have the principles, there is a lot of conversation as to how do these principles actually apply in all these different scenarios and use cases we've talked about. How does security apply? How does incident management apply? And it seems to me that the principles will actually be transformed by that process, right? But until we get to a point of actually having something established as a foundation to move forward into this further level of conversation, we'll never get to that point of iteration, right? So what I'm really kind of trying to drive us towards is getting to a point where the principles are laid as a foundation, and we can continue the conversation, right? And not
Yeah.
keep this ongoing iteration of like
Well,
finding a way to
that's the goal.
unblock us, right? Like I think at this point we are basically kind of like spinning our wheels constantly. And
Yeah, I just want to, Leo, just real quick, I just want to be fair to like, like this is, there has been a lot of progress made. And I don't think you're not saying that. I don't think you're saying the opposite of that. I think, I mean, because there's been like many meetings like this, and they haven't all been wheel spinning. Some of them have felt that way. And some of them are, I'm just trying to qualify this a little bit from my own perspective. I think everyone, not only on this call, but on the past calls, definitely wants to do what you're saying. And that has been a goal. And it's been stated a number of times. We know that these principles are foundational for doing these other things. We have that written in the charter. And I definitely really appreciate you working like as one of the chairs too, and trying to help move this forward. I think the main thing that I think that Leo is talking about that's different, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leo, that we've said before, is that instead of doing like continuing to have milestones that are like major version zeros, let's go ahead and start bumping RCs. Right?
And have I kind of like I'm also talking about a little bit about process, right? I think there is I think the process that we followed is not that it has not resulted in a lot of value. I think it's basically a point where I think now we have to get all the maintainers involved. That we have to get the interested parties involved, and there's got to be a kind of a better mechanism to reach consensus. That is, I'm looking for the right word to kind of frame it. To reach consensus in a way that everybody's opinion is heard, as we've been doing, that everybody's opinion is integrated, but that we can get to a point of progress, right? And that's the reason I'm thinking this, basically coming up with a release candidate and a series of release candidates that are basically, what's the word that I'm looking for? That are basically approved and reviewed by the maintainers, and that are open for interested parties commentary. They're open for community commentary, and that. But the point is that there is a way to incorporate that into this release candidates, and I think that's what the maintainers are there for, right? The maintainers are there to take the community feedback and the community input and coalesce and make it coherent, right? So basically that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for getting this in front of all the maintainers, making sure that the maintainers agree, and making sure that there is a voice that allows a group that allows us to consolidate this many voices into something. Because right now I think we are there's just too many voices fragmenting the process, right? And I think going through multiple RCs, driven or guided by the maintainers, listening and opening up for the full community, is kind of like the nutshell of the changing process that I'm suggesting.
Well, does this sound right, Christian? I mean, I also, Robert, your hand is raised, but just making sure that we're in the spirit of not reiterating things like, I typed in the proposed changes here, the suggested changes that we're making. Does that sound correct, or is there anything else?
It's unclear what you mean by number 2.
Oh, so instead of, oh geez, well, so instead of continuing on the this process, we have changed the process up several times, but instead of continuing on the process that we're doing right now, where we're having this weekly meeting where we continue to chip away but not necessarily get through very far section, we move to the maintainers to write a draft, to draft the next RC, so that RC can be kicked back to this group and to other interested parties for feedback and changes. And we move through the RC process as opposed to just like the 1 hour weekly meeting process. And we try to make that as async as we can.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. I think it's at least a step forward, right? Because it does feel like we're doing 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes. So
yeah,
cool. I believe Robert has been very patient, so I'll let him.
It's only because it's late. I've said before that having these meetings every single week is not doing anything, and that's just because, you know, first of all, we just end up arguing on the same thing over and over again, or, you know, we diverge from something, and we're living in a virtual world where everything's virtual, and I don't mind doing, you know, these recurrent meetings like this, just not on a weekly cadence, because at a certain point I stop working at 4 and then I sit in these things and then I go to bed, you know. So you know, breaking them up, doing more work before the meeting, having the discussions, and then for someone to take it on themselves to just kind of just, you know, gather all the various inputs, and then we can discuss that, would make it a lot easier to go forward, I think. So having release candidates and as like a concept, that sounds great. At the same time, I would like to have something, you know, to hold on to. So if like the meetings, or if there was like a certain schedule for the releases, so you have something to actually, you can have in your calendar and not get quadruple booked or something, which happens all the time. Yeah.
Let me share my screen real quick just so we can look at the milestones, because that's what we're talking about now. Oh, sorry, Christian, your hand's raised.
No, I just wanted to echo kind of what Robert was saying, is that if I would like to keep the meetings, but if we have a very specific agenda for them, like before the approval of a release candidate, you know, kind of like, I don't know, similar to like a burn down call, or I don't know, something like that. So just echoing what Robert was saying. So anyways, I think that's what you were about to show.
Basically, yeah. And also, and that's great. Yeah. So burn down call is a good idea, or a good way to put it, because these, too bad we don't have Chris on the call right now, but anyway, we're using GitHub right now as our tool for this, and each of the milestones have a burn down built in. It just so happens that right now there's only one issue tied to each one. So I think we've all agreed now that, like, really that the purpose of these meetings can be shifted to essentially a triage while we, right? Well, so we can prepare things like, if points have been raised, but they're not written down anywhere, someone can take an action item to do that. These milestones, I was going to say that we can actually, we don't have to necessarily, well, let's say this, you know, for example, the next milestone was going to be today, and that was going to be simplifying the principal's titles. That's not going to happen today, right? So we were going to do that, and then and the next one was going to be resolving the notes, and the next one is going to be ensuring accessibility language, and then hopefully at some point, sometime before KubeCon, we do the inevitable release, right? So I think what we're going to do is change this now. And did we have a date for the RC?
Me?
Yeah, sorry, Leo.
No, that's kind of one of the reasons that I didn't quite feel prepared to go over this all kind of today, was because I think there's that type of nuance that we have to figure out. One of the things that we also want to address is kind of reach out to the maintainers and kind of get the maintainers' sense as to what is their availability, right? You know what I'm saying? What is a reasonable time frame for us to expect feedback? There is a governance in place that we would look for a simple majority for a lot of these like review processes, right? Where the maintainers are actually saying, all right, yes, we've looked at the full set of feedback from the community, and we can all agree this is our interpretation or attempt to interpret what the community is telling us, right? And now we want to kind of bring that back to the community to make sure that we heard right. We want to make sure that there is time and availability from them. Another thing that we were talking amongst us is kind of within the group of the chairs is what is a good time for us to think about targeting an actual version 1 release, right? We have GitOps coming, so would it be that we should be working towards being able to announce version 1.0 during GitOps Con, which would be great. If that's the case, we would have to work backwards from that to see what kind of type of time frames we would be looking at. So at this point, I think it would be, I would not be able to publicly state any due date. What I can say is one should be defined considering those different criteria or constraints and objectives that I just mentioned. Does that make sense?
Yep. So I'm right. I'm basically, so date is optional for milestone. I won't add it, but we've agreed that we're going to do an RC1. We're going to have an RC1 milestone. I just said, does this sound right? First release candidate drafted by the GitHub working group / open GitOps maintainers, incorporating all discussion and feedback thus far. The goal is to pass this back to the principals committee for async feedback. We also intend to solicit feedback from the interested people listed in the,
From just from interested parties. And one thing that we don't have about the interested parties is contact information. So if anybody actually knows any of the interested parties and you have an email or anything, that'll be great.
I believe we do actually. I believe we have email contact for everyone.
There isn't. No,
you're right. We don't.
No.
You know what? We have email for some of the people. That's right. In the original, this is what I was thinking. The original Google Doc this was from.
Okay.
Linked, but then I think folks just copied the link style. And so a lot of them aren't linked. In any case, we'll say, I think we don't need to list that here. That can just be part of our plan. But like we'll say milestone date pending. Oops, milestone date pending maintainer.
While you do this, Robert and Jesse have their hands up, so maybe we can. Robert, why don't you go first? I think you were first, and then Jesse, because it might be related to this.
Yeah, I was just well, let's see. Sorry, ADHD and my medicine is kicking off or going away. So due dates and time boxing and everything like that. It's been brought up in principal meetings before, and some people were strongly against setting dates and things like that. I think it's very important to do that, to have some sort of deadline. It can be a soft deadline, but at least have something to work towards. Obviously, for milestone right now, we don't need to set that, straight away. But we should at least think when we want this done, so we have something to work against. And the other thing I was thinking about is the interested parties list, which I don't think is totally complete. It's probably gathered at the start when everything started happening, and then just the crayon is not on it. But I've been part of this thing for many months now, so it's not totally updated. We don't have any contact information for a lot of these people, and should we get a new interested parties list, or encourage people to actually add themselves there, or how can we deal with that? Because what does interested parties mean at this point in time when the list is stale and who knows what's going on that?
Yeah, I think
sorry, Jesse has his hand raised. I just want to make sure that we're.
Oh, right. Sorry, Jesse. Go ahead, Jesse.
You can stay on topic, and then I can go. That's okay. If you were replying to Robert.
Yeah, just a quick reply. That's another thing that we've been talking about in the chairs group, the communication process for these, because we will want to communicate this out to the community. It is the interested parties is stale. We don't have contact information, so basically this needs to be communicated to everybody. And I think a point to make, Robert, about timelines is important, right? If we reach out kind of to communicate a sense of urgency. This is important. This is happening, and you want to add yourself now to that list, right? Make sure that we get people up to date. The communication in the Slack channel, I think, is also pretty much stale. Like, I don't think anybody that interested parties, or a good percentage of them, are not active there. So basically, make sure that this is effectively communicated to the entire community, that this communicated to the open GitOps maintainers and all the interested parties, including soft dates or dates for whatever it's worth, right? Yeah, so that's just a quick response. Go ahead, Jesse.
Jesse, is your hand still up from before, or?
No,
it
no,
hasn't gone yet.
No, it's sort of a shift. It's an observation based on where we're at in this meeting. This is the first time this is really happening. So I pinged Nick on the side and said, this is an interesting first meeting to join. So this does loop back to some observations that I made earlier. So I'm just going to reiterate them. I think that this, as we have a working group. We're working on open GitOps. We have committee work that's happening. I think we all agree that it's time to sort of set some dates, draw some lines in the sand, deliver something back to the overall working group. I think that the goal should be then moving back to a working group that continues to work on communications. We improve the website. We start working on what the requirements are around tutorials. We make decisions around whether or not we're looking at things like, I think we've already made the decision how we're going to approach compliance, how we might do that with principles and no spec. All of that needs to happen, I think. And I believe that should happen at the working group level. I think that the idea of a working group meeting once a month and being primarily driven by a couple of parties is probably needs to change. That might need to become a weekly working group meeting. And based on experience that I've had in other working groups, whether it was way back in the day with SAS or PCI Express or InfiniBand, or more recently in like Open Containers Initiative, that is typically how this work gets done. Is going to be, it's a working group, it's weekly, you show up, you do the work. If you don't show up, that's okay too. We still value your input and your opinion. We will communicate the best we can, but the work has to move forward. And I think the thrust of what I'm saying is based on, kind of Leo, your observations, and that I think we're beyond the, everyone has an equal voice no matter how much they show up, how infrequently they show up, because that has really started to slow us down. And I think we need to start looking at sort of quorum and boots on the ground at a particular meeting, making decisions, merging PRs, moving forward. It's open source. I mean, if somebody's super passionate, they can file a pull request, right? That's cool. It's not like we're writing things in, spray paint on a brick wall and then gonna veneer it. It just, we need to move forward. So I think in the spirit of all of this, I'm not even sure we need this meeting in particular, more than we need to think about being more visible and being more, kind of changing the working group structure and seeing just who shows up. I mean, look, Nick's just shown up and he's like, hey, I'm interested, I'm here. There's probably a lot of people out there like that. And I think the more, the more output focused, the more work product we focus on in these meetings, and the more visible they are and regular, I think the better off we're going to be. And I think I love the idea of like making sure all voices are heard, but I think that we have struggled with the difference between, group consensus and all voices being heard. And I think I think it's time for us to move on from that.
Thank you, Jesse. I agree with all your comments.
And I mean that in the most positive, supportive,
well,
inclusive way. Like I don't mean like we're putting up walls. I mean actually the opposite. Yeah.
Just saying I completely agree with Jesse, and I think we've heretofore conflated the two, consensus versus every voice is heard, right? And I think that's helped us, right? Every voice is heard up until this point, and now it does seem like it's now working against us. And I would like to see some sort of consensus policy, I guess, for lack of a better word, or how we reach consensus, whether it be through like lazy consensus, or I know I've asked this in the past, and Scott, I think you've answered that the chairs have been working on it, but just how consensus is reached and what that process is. I think if we move closer to that, there we go. Thank you for posting that link. Yeah, so I'm just basically just kind of applauding. I should have used emoji ops, but I'm just kind of basically just agreeing with everything that Jesse was saying. So let me do that. There we go.
Cool, thanks, Christian. All right, well, with that in mind, let's move on, right? It sounds like we're back to the proposal that we agreed to do, but just we didn't want to pull the trigger just yet. Sounds like we're saying let's pull the trigger, right? Where we have one meeting that's weekly. We move from 2 weekly meetings and 1 monthly meeting to just 1 weekly meeting where we cover all bases. Sounds good. I don't think so far everyone has agreed to this. So I don't think we are going to need to have some prolonged process.
I see some potential not agreeing from Robert.
Yeah, I'm trying to word this, but like I mentioned, weekly sounds like a lot, especially if there's no agenda before, like the 10 minutes before things are happening, and the normal thing that kind of happens in these things.
Should we do fortnightly then? Is that?
I would prefer that, just simply because I'm in other working groups, I'm in other projects, I'm in other personal projects, and there's a lot of stuff going on now. I'm trying to get that to work, and having something every week is hard.
Yeah, we discussed both of those, by the way, and everybody said that we were cool with both of those generally. So for me, I actually am not even getting to that level of detail. Like that sounds fine. Fortnightly sounds fine to me personally. Let's just fucking do it. And if anybody has a problem with it, we'll talk about it. Okay, cool. Got a lot of thumbs up. Yay. All right. So in the spirit of that,
can I reply to that quick?
Oh yeah.
That's the only reason for my hand. So yeah, the weekly is me just drawing a line in the sand. We can rub it out, put it somewhere else. Every 2 weeks is fine. Yeah. I will say from my previous observation, something like the OCI runtime spec was very detailed, and we had a lot to do. We met weekly, sometimes more than that, for months. I don't think we have that here. And I really do think we have a natural async capability here where we can show up with PRs to review. And I think if our weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings or whatever has more of that, and more like sort of the agenda is review these 2 PRs, we're getting a lot more work done. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
Jesse, I love that. Would someone be good enough to take notes if they haven't already on this? Because this is pretty important. Anyway, I'm just going to hope the answer is yes from someone, and because my mind is only able to do one task at a time right now. Cool, thank you. And we'll figure out the details, right? We'll get back with the details. We don't have to waste time doing that stuff right now. Hey, Jesse, OCI didn't take very long, did it? Okay, sorry.
Some number of months.
Yeah,
define long.
Some small number of months.
Some small number of time periods. Okay.
Yeah.
In any case, let me share my screen real quick, because we're talking right now just about a basic triage thing, right? So the link that I sent before is the decision making. We're not going to go over it all right now. I just wanted to make it clear that we have inside of the governance doc, inside of the GitOps working group, that is soon to be moved to the Open GitOps project. Lee and I are working on that. We still have an issue in here to, I guess we don't really need to, let's see here. Whatever. Maybe it's in the Open GitOps project. Anyway, we have an issue to move files over, the appropriate files over. So for example, you'll see this simplify a little bit. So that the Open GitOps project is a sandbox project. The GitOps working group is a limited time working group under CNCF delivery app delivery tag. So the working group will have the charter like a normal working group does, and other things that are important for working group related information. Stuff that's important for the Open GitOps project will move one file at a time through pull requests, as we have been so far, into the Open GitOps project. We'll continue doing that, including this governance doc. So for now, and until then, until then, and even after that, once it moves, the decision-making section stands. The milestones, now that we are like doing this, these were cool milestones, right? Like we want to simplify the titles, we want to resolve the notes, we want to ensure the accessibility of all language. I think, given that we just talked about this, I think I want to suggest that we add that. Does anyone have an objection to adding that as part of the goals here for this?
I think that's fine, and at the same time, the simplify principle titles and these discussions, they are taking a while.
Yeah.
So if they kind of get mostly done through discussions or whatever, and then someone actually takes that and makes that something that we can look through and actually say yes or no.
Yes.
But again, this kind of just and I say this and then I don't really have any power to do a help or anything like that. It's kind of so it's kind of hard for me to say people should do this, but then I would just consume it. But that would make sense to me if someone actually went through what's going on in discussions and understand what's going on there to create something that we actually can take a stand on, not just a bunch of the things that are happening in discussions, if that makes sense.
And just as a quick response to Robert, that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish here, right? Like I want to have something solid that we can provide feedback, but we have right now like this fragmented conversation and opinions all over the place. I think we should basically define something that can be the foundation driven by governance that gives us that starting, I'm not gonna say starting point, that solid state of kind of deliberation going forward. That's the idea behind the RC concept, right?
And I'm just going to answer that really quickly while still holding it on in my scatterbrain. The reason why I say this is because there's a lot of things to do in the Open GitOps project. So there's articles to write, or best practice patterns, whatever you want to call it. There's documents to create. If everyone is really involved, it's hard. But if someone, for instance, for the principles, the decisions there and the release candidates kind of like gather everything and can explain to people, they can just show up and actually just understand or read the agenda and make a decision based on that. Because being a part of a working group that has so many things happening is going to be hard for a lot of people, because most people have a job and then they do this. So yeah, that would be really cool if that happened.
Okay, great. That makes sense. I'm now doing the thing where we move these to the correct milestones. So we're essentially closing, since we're talking about like mainly like planning and PR stuff and not just debating concepts synchronously, right? This is for the planning primarily now. Okay, so I just closed basically the 0.2.0 milestone. If this is right, that our first RC should draft addressing previously planned milestones, which will now be closed, to simplify the titles, resolve the notes, and ensure accessibility of language, right? At least for feedback. Does that still sound correct? Since I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually see anybody, but
Sorry, I did a thumbs up.
okay, cool. Okay, great. So just in terms of housekeeping super fast, I'm gonna just go through, I'm just gonna reattach these milestones. And so I'll just do the same thing. So version 3, oops. Sorry, it's boring as hell, but there we go. I'll move it to RC1. And then this milestone could be closed.
While you do that, Scott, I'm guessing the best way to define the first new date for the fortnightly working group meeting is a doodle, right? Do you agree? Should we kind of do a doodle for people to vote on best times?
Yeah, and let's send out to the mailing list too. Let's do all of it because this is now for everyone. It's going to be for every group, not just for every committee, not just the.
Yeah, this is like working group general.
Yeah.
Guessing a doodle is a good way to go. Just think the things, yay or nay.
Yeah, Jesse, do you want to take a milestone for that? Or sorry, an action item for that? I can also do it. I just can't do it today because I have to go to a doctor's appointment after this.
I can't do it today either, but yeah, I mean, you can sign me up for something.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do that. We can even make that, honestly, that's a task that the chair should do because that's part of the.
I can do it. The only question is, I think a doodle is the way to go, right? As long as.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Really, we're just
love to doodle.
All right, yeah.
I think that's the only way to really make sure that the extreme ends of the cloth are represented is with the doodle. Makes sense.
Right now, the only way to communicate with interested people in the GitOps working group is through the GitOps working group Slack, correct? We don't have any other means. Okay.
We also have a mailing list.
Yeah, we have a mailing list, but it's not very active.
It is not.
Is that the CNCF working group mailing list, correct?
Yeah.
No, it's a mailing list for the way working groups normally communicate is through the tag that they're attached to. So we're in the app delivery.
So we would have. Oh, I guess that's the way to go, right?
Yeah, it is the way. It is the way to go. And under and in our communication section. Oops, sorry. In our communication section in the GitOps working group, how to get involved. One of them is.
It says join the SIG app delivery mailing.
Jesus Christ, where does it say?
Right there,
right there.
Right here.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Thanks.
They're right on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've noticed other people using this kind of prefix. So we talked about this like months ago and we decided to do that. Not everyone's followed it, but
I didn't know that was a thing. So if I was to post something, I wouldn't know, but now I know.
Yeah, no worries. I don't think it's like no one's going to be struck down, smitten. Anyway,
smitten. Smited.
Get smote. I think it is.
Okay, so like just to wrap up the milestones thing, we have two, and the one we say we at least know we want a version 1 before GitOpsCon. That's why I marked it as October 12th. Not that we want to wait that long. Hopefully we do that sooner than this. And this one is pending. The date is pending maintainer availability in the coming weeks, and we'll find that out. And I think we're done with milestones. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Does that sound good?
Yeah. When this is gonna get communicated, could someone write a quick blog post on opengitops.dev or whatever the URL is?
That's a really good idea.
And you kind of just use that for people to link to. That would make sense. Then we get people into the site as well.
So Dan and I had an action item to write the next blog post, and I think we got pulled into other things. So let's just fold this in. And if anyone wants to get, like, you know me, I'm all about collaboration. Let's just, anybody who wants to chip in on it, let's do it, as long as it doesn't stop it from happening.
As long as I get a time to talk to you, that's
Okay.
I can join on that.
Okay, cool.
So your idea, Robert, is a blog post to communicate this new fortnightly meeting and kind of like.
Well, That too, but then again, we haven't used the website for basically anything at this point. But I was just suggesting that when we're doing these release candidate meetings, when we start spamming that, we could use the website to actually host the communique.
Yeah, if we could start driving the communication, our outward communication through the website would be great.
Okay, I get it.
Right, do we have that on the list as an action item maybe?
Add this to the meeting doc.
All right, awesome. Yeah, the standing to do that we have is number one, make a blog post that's just like, welcome to this blog, you know, but instead of being very generic, it's just like literally welcome to the blog. Here's what it's for. This is what we're doing with like GitOps.
This is my first post on my new fake blog. How exciting.
Right,
It's
right.
not a great blog post.
Right,
us.
exactly. So not that, but like essentially, if we don't want to be cheeky, we don't have to say that. We can call it whatever we want, but essentially, Rick, that we're moving to the Open GitOps project. It's sort of announcing Open GitOps, right? And then
That's a good title.
Yeah.
That's a real good
Tell the
title.
world.
I mean, just roll up everything we've done, most recent decisions, what the plan is going forward, and invite people to join us.
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And it's all by PR now because we don't have the website fully automated yet. Interestingly, the build is not automated, but we will get that. That's a to-do in the website. But
and how do we get that PR reviewed? As I tagged you in the adding Crayon as a member, because I can't set anyone as a reviewer and no one has done it. So I was just kind of waiting, and I kind of I don't know, waited 2 weeks. I waited long enough, I think.
Yeah.
And as
Where's
someone
the-
is just
where's the-
contributing, I can't really do anything. I can't put anyone on there or say I want Scott to review it, or I can't do anything like that. I can
You
just
should-
submit a PR.
You should be able to. Oh, in the text, you should be able to. You're right. We don't have Prow or anything set up, but where's your PR? Do you mind sending that to me? I know someone. I know. Oh, it's on. It's top of the hour.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Point of order. Top of the hour.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. I'll see you on Slack and see you all on Slack. And before our next meeting, we'll have a doodle.
Yeah, and we'll continue communicating through Slack. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
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 See ya.